Hi, friends. I'm Pastor Steve, and I just wanted to give you a little update on our space here that we know as Solid Grounds. You probably know that for the last 15 years or so, our church has owned this space, and we've run it as a coffee shop. And I'm guessing that many of you have a lot of good memories from being here inside Solid Grounds. You know that about a year ago, when COVID hit, we had to close down. And since that time, we've been praying and asking God what He wanted us to do with this space. When I came on board in November and started my job, that responsibility kind of landed on my shoulders to figure out what was going to happen next and whether we would try to run it again ourselves. We've tried that the last 14 or 15 years, and to be honest with you, most of those years have not been profitable at all for us. And so I've been praying about how we could run this as a ministry, how we can do it profitably so it's not draining funds from the church every month. And I think people had given me a list of 6 different coffee companies to contact to see whether they might be interested in helping us run this space. And I just started praying that God would make it really clear, that He would bring something to us or an opportunity to us that was from Him, that we didn't have to make something happen. Let me tell you how that story worked out. So Pastor Alex was just down the sidewalk visiting with Jake, who is the guy that operates Churchfront Ministries out of our space next to the church, you know, the one that used to be Trinity Fitness. So Alex was in there visiting with Jake, and one of his employees is Chipper. It happens that Chipper's dad, Billy, was there that day when Alex walked in, and Billy is now a executive pastor at another church. And they got to talking, and Alex mentioned something about the coffee shop. And anyway, Billy said, well, you've got to talk to Brad from our church. He runs Atlas Coffee, and you guys ought to just get together and see if you could learn from each other or what God might do. So that led to a meeting with Brad. And right from the start, both Alex and I felt like this is something that God has put together. It feels like an opportunity to partner with someone who knows how to run a coffee shop and who would do it really in the same way that we would if we were running it. So I want you to meet Brad. He's here today with me. Brad, come on in and join us. Brad, you've been in the coffee business for how long now?
In business since 2016.
Yeah, so, and what are your other locations?
We have one at King Carroll and one in Sterling Ranch.
And why would you want to run this one here on Broadway?
You know, it's funny you asked that because we've actually entertained the idea once before when Pastor Larry was still here.
Yeah.
And at that point decided we were still going to run it internally. Walking in the door, though, I saw the values that were painted up on the wall. It's like this totally resonates with who we are. Yeah. And so it's just there was a symbiotic relationship already from the start, and we are big believers in building community. Coffee for us has been a history of community gathering place, and so that's kind of why we started Atlas in the first place, to be that community resource, that community asset, a third place where people could gather.
So that's been one of the important things for our people, is that this be a space where anyone can gather, from the community, from the church, and I know that that's on your heart. Another aspect that attracts us to having Atlas run this is the way that you deal with buying your coffee and your growers. Can you talk to us about that for a minute?
Yeah, I kind of look at our values as almost like an iceberg, if you will. There's a part above the surface, the quality of coffee. We don't believe that anything will sustain if it's not good quality, if it's not done really well. So when we source our coffee, one thing we do is we don't source charity coffee. We source really good coffee. Yeah. We 86.5 points or higher on the Q scale, we won't buy it. And so the quality's got to be there. And then we work with Corvus Coffee, who is our roaster, who does things at a very high level as well. The second tier of that is the community piece, you know, that we want not only have great quality, but have community. It'd be a gathering place. But really below the surface that you don't see as much is how restorative coffee can be in our world. The statistic I have used often is that Coffee's been selling at $1.10 a pound for quite a long time. And 90% of the world's coffee is grown in the developing world. And it is the second most traded commodity in the world, but yet it's stuck at $1.10 a pound. So one of our objectives with Corvus is to, it sounds strange to say, but just literally spend more for coffee.
Yeah.
We average between $4 and $7 a pound for coffee, where on the commodities exchange it's more like $1.10 a pound.
Yeah.
And so when we've gone to origin, whether it's Ethiopia or Colombia or Guatemala, wherever it might be, we see how transformative it is when we're spending $4 to $7 a pound in these communities. The whole communities are transformed around it.
Wow.
And so that's kind of my heartbeat, and what really kind of gets me up every morning is to see how this can impact the world at large.
So you have connections with particular growers in those different countries?
Yes, you've heard of fair trade, and we focus on what we call relationship coffee.
Yeah.
We know the importers, the exporters, the producers, the co-op leaders in different countries. Every country's a little different in how they handle their coffee industry, but our purpose of traveling there once, twice, 3 times a year is to keep those relationships, maintain those relationships.
Nice. And I know from one of your other shops that there's actually pictures of the growers right on the wall, and I hope that we get that here sometime.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you came to us and said, we'd like to run this. So it's going to be more of a landlord-tenant agreement in one sense, but it also feels like a partnership. You told me you didn't need that upper space. How can we utilize that together? How can we collaborate on that?
You know, at our other shops, we've partnered. Down Sterling Ranch, we partner with the community center and with Grist Brewery, and we use that space. That way, we've had book signings and stuff that we have to reserve the space ourselves. The Ken Carroll shop we have outright, and so we will use that for coffee and canvas, to booster clubs from the high school, to Bible studies, or to affinity groups of different sorts, and they just use the shop after our hours. And sometimes we'll provide barista service, sometimes we don't. But that's we see similar with the space here, is that we may reserve it at times for events that we identify, and we will also be able to provide coffee for events and stuff that you do as a church and that you identify with your community.
I like it. So at least for now, as we start our arrangement together, the church will operate the upper level. You won't be paying rent for that, but we'll share it with you when you want it. And I hear you saying that when we have an event up there where we might want some coffee or more space, that you'll share your space with us.
Absolutely.
I think it'll be a good arrangement. So I love the way that you see this as a ministry to the community. You want this to be a gathering space. You're concerned about where we buy the coffee and the quality of the coffee. I also want to know about the ministry to the baristas and the customers. And I know that you actually have a partner, Marla, who works with you, and that's really where she shines, right?
Yeah. Robin, my wife, and I, one of our big heartbeats is to help young adults kind of find their traction in life and get moving. And she and Marla, who's kind of our general manager, have worked hard at developing the younger staff. Sometimes it's just for a season. It may just be while they're in their 20s and trying to figure out what their career's like. And sometimes it may be longer. People that are on the backside of a career and just want to have a community-related. She'd be a great one to talk to.
Yeah, I'm going to invite her in here in just a second.
And so Robin and I really, we like to dig into the day-to-day operations of the shop. And so we talk about, we have 2 ministries at all times, the ministry behind the bar and the ministry in front of the bar. And so, behind the bar, it really does tap into kind of what Brad was referencing, just pouring into young adults' lives. It is often a stage in life where you're making a lot of decisions about, your job, your schooling, who you're spending time with, and how you're spending your time. So it's great to not be their mom, but get to be a voice into young lives like that. And then we have the ministry outside the bar, and that's where we get to know just the regulars that are coming in all the time. And it might start with just learning what their drink is, but then learning about, what their stage in life is and what their passions are, and just forming great friendships. And what's fun is when you meet 2 separate people that don't know each other but have a shared passion or a shared need, and then you can introduce them and bring them together and just watch the friendships that develop within the shop community.
Yeah.
So that's always
And you've told me that your workers become almost like family. Like you celebrate birthdays and weddings.
Baby
and,
showers and all kinds of stuff.
Which is, if I was running it, that's the same. That would be my heart exactly. That God really gives us a ministry both to our own workers and then to the people that come through the doors.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, when do you think you guys could open?
Well, we're excited to get started. I think we're going to come in and just maybe update the space a little bit so it still feels like a coffee shop, but maybe has a little bit more of our Atlas flavor to it.
Yeah.
And then I think that we'll be ready to roll hopefully beginning of May, beginning of June.
Wouldn't that be great?
That would be so fun.
Yeah. Well, on behalf of our church, I just want to say thank you to both of you for just listening to God, I think, and His prompting to maybe come over here and see whether this partnership could work. And yes, the Solid Grounds name is going to go away. That may require a little grieving for a few of our folks. But Atlas Coffee has a great reputation, a great name, and I think just giving it a restart will probably be good for this space and for this community. And I'm excited to see what God's going to do.
Yeah, so, we're very excited.
Yeah.
Very excited.
So there you go, South. That's your update, and now you know what's going on here. Thanks for checking in.